Today's VetNet session. My name is Cassandra Rosica, and I am the Alumni Services and Engagement Manager here at the Daniello Institute for Veterans and Military Families. Today, you will hear from Syracuse University alumnus, one of the most accomplished brand and marketing leaders in the entertainment and sports industry. Tracy Barash is the president of Cut Through Consulting, where she advises organizations across media, sports, and consumer goods. She previously spent nearly 2 decades at Warner Brothers Discovery, leading major global brands including Harry Potter, Cartoon Network, Turner Sports, where she oversaw the marketing for NBA on TNT and helped with the NHL launch on TNT as well. So Tracy is deeply engaged in the Syracuse University community. She serves as a chair of the Whitman School of Management Advisory Board, previously as the president of the Syracuse University Alumni Association. She was honored at the 2024 volunteer as the 2024 Volunteer of the Year and has worked alongside veterans and military connected communities for over 15 years. So deeply embedded in the space. In this session, you will learn how to craft a clear, compelling resume that highlights your strengths, as well as accomplishments and learning practical strategies for translating military experience into civilian language. That way, employers can immediately recognize the value and expertise that you bring. So again, thank you so much, Tracy, for joining us today and lending your expertise. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Cassandra. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here today. I love doing things with the military community. I think Cassandra mentioned I started doing work a good 15 years ago, and I started with doing resumes and job search tips and techniques for a friend of mine who just retired as a major general, and loved supporting, his units when they came back from Afghanistan. This is back in 2010, 11, and 12. And so I'm really happy to be here today. I hope you take away a couple things from this session that you can implement when putting together your resume and working towards your job search. And please, are we doing questions at the end? Is that how it is? Or should we stop in the middle, Cassandra?
Yep.
Questions at the
At the
end?
end, we'll take some questions and then any from the chat that come through.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Yeah, please put some in the chat. So I'm gonna share my screen. I have a presentation that I like to go through, and I'm looking forward to sharing this with you today. So can you all see that? Can you all see that? I can't see myself, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Oh, sorry about that. Let's try that again. 1 second, please. Okay. Hold on a second. Don't know why that's not working. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. We just tested this before we got here, so I'm not quite sure. Let's try this one more time. How's that?
Yep. We can see it.
Okay, like I said, I can't see myself, so I don't know why, but we're gonna keep going. Okay, so today I'm gonna talk about telling your career story with intentionality. And I like to use the word intentional because it means putting specific thought into whatever you're doing or whatever you're trying to accomplish. And so keep that word in mind as we go through the session. So before we get to your resume, I want you to think about what a job opening is and what that represents. And think about it this way as you approach your job search journey or your resume journey. So, what is an open job? Well, an open job is an unmet need. It's something that needs to get done within an organization that's not getting done. Or worse, honestly, it's something that the manager is doing that's taking away from her or his primary responsibilities. And so when you're looking for a job, I want you to think about it this way. What is your role in this process? And it's really about why you're the optimal, and I don't mean most qualified because that's very subjective, but why you're the optimal candidate for this role at this time to fulfill that need. Always approach, excuse me, the job search from the employer's point of view. And it's all about the value you can bring. And I think that's the key thing. It's about how much value you can bring and being able to communicate that when you get into a situation with a job in a job interview. And so,
Tracy, I
yeah,
hate to interrupt. Would you be able to use the slideshow mode again? So sorry about that.
it's not in slideshow mode.
So it is, but we can see like the notes as well.
Oh,
Yeah, it looks like it shows your slide and then it shows your preview of the next slide, when that's
oh
normally
yeah, yeah. No, it should
screen.
be showing the other one. Oh, geez. I'm so sorry. We just tested this. I swear we tested this.
No worries, no worries.
We can still see all the content. It was just a little bit smaller, so I think you want to try and reshare if you could.
Yeah, okay. So now what can you see?
We can still see it with the notes, but I think if you click
Ah,
on,
that
there we
worked.
go. There we
That
go.
worked.
Okay.
Now we're full slide mode.
Sorry about it. I don't know why I can't see you all anymore, but okay, there we go. Okay, so sorry about that, everyone. You can see full slide now, yes?
Full
Yes,
slide, but
but
I think there's a pop-up of your slides there. So maybe like if you minimize it and then we'll be good.
I don't know what is going on.
Tracy, I think you probably have multiple screens or tabs, so you just have to drag one or the other out of the way so you can have the main one on. So if you want to do it, and then everybody can like right now, if you can drag that out of the way, drag your whole. There you go.
perfect. I think we're good. We see only the slideshow in presentation mode.
Honestly, you guys, I do this like every day, so I'm not quite sure what's going on. Um, I'm so sorry, everyone. Okay, so focus. So for the process to be most effective, we want to talk about focus and what are the things that you're looking for? And so one of the things that I think always trips people up when they're looking for a job is distinguishing between function and industry. So understanding what's appealing about each of these will help with your focus. And it's really easy to describe it this way. Function is what you do, and industry is where you do it. Operations, marketing, logistics, accounting, analytics, analysis, those are functions. Healthcare, sports, entertainment, manufacturing, those are industries. And so you can do lots of different functions in different industries. You can do the same function in lots of different industries, but figuring out what you like about each will really help you, and it'll help you with your resume crafting. Okay. So those are the things I'd love you to think about before you even get to your resume. So we're going to talk about crafting your career story with intentionality. Everybody has an opinion on resumes. Everybody has opinions on formats, what should be in them, what shouldn't be in them. I've been doing this for a long time, and this is what's worked for me and for other people I know when I've given them this advice. And it's about in storytelling and intentionality. And I want you to think about not just applying for jobs, but when you're networking and you're getting out there to your network and somebody's like, hey, send me your resume. I want you to remember that your resume is a proxy for you when you're not in the room. It speaks for you. So what do you want it to say? And that's what we're going to talk about today. What do you want it to say? So think about what's the purpose of a resume? So it's a forum and it's a format and it showcases your skills and it's back to that value you can add to an organization. It's not just the stuff, but it's the value you can add. Like I just mentioned, it's a connector for networking. It's that connector when somebody doesn't know you. It also allows you to tell your career story in person in an interview and in a digital environment via job applications or on LinkedIn. Ultimately, what you really wanted to do is help you land an interview. And one of the things that I think is important of why you should write your own resume, and a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just going to let AI write it, or I'm going to send it to a resume writer, is it's the script during your interview process. The more versed you are in what you've put on your resume and you're able to tell those stories that are really meaningful to you, again, about the value that you have brought to past organizations that you can bring to those future organizations, the better equipped you'll be during that process because you've written them down and you've thought about them and you've been intentional about what you put on that document and why. So, what makes a good resume? Well, the first thing is got to be clear. And you're like, what does that mean? Um, if somebody reads it, do they really understand what you did functionally, results-wise, and value-wise? Does your grandmother understand what you do? You know, that's what you always say. Does your mom or your grandmother understand what you do if you read your resume? Quantifiable. Numbers are great because they show ranges of things. Managed a team of 10 people. Managed a budget of $1 million. So anything like that, somebody can put into context. We'll get to contextual. Solution oriented. A lot of people miss the so therefore resulted in. You did all this stuff. Well, what happened? What happened as a result of your efforts? That was effort and work that you put into something. Contextual. Context is king. So if you're in sales and you grew revenue 10% last year, is that good or bad? Well, if you grew revenue 10%, the highest for that territory in 5 years, that's context. That's pretty darn good. Put it in context. The largest, the biggest, the newest, the most forward-thinking, whatever it is, but context is king. Your resume has to be appropriate for the types of roles you're seeking. And that means that you might have to tailor it for different roles. And so if you are seeking a role in sales and you have no sales experience or you don't even mention qualities that are necessary for being a good salesperson, i.e., communication skills or managing outside people or relationship building, then that resume is not appropriate for that role. It needs to be easy to read. And I know a lot of times that online, you're putting it in online and it's kind of dumping it into a file, and I get that. But you're gonna get a job more likely through networking than applying online and using your network, especially your military network. And so that resume is a proxy for you when you're not in the room. Really small type, or no spacing, or once in a while I'll get people and they like to put lots of colors and pictures and stuff on it. It takes away from you telling your story. Make it easy for someone to read it and figure out what you're doing. And the last piece is that does it effectively communicate your career story? You're the only one who has this story. It's unique to you. So let's make it most effective in telling that story, and that's what we'll talk about. Okay. So, sections of a resume. There's I think 6 main sections. The first is the heading, your name, your phone number, your email. Um, you don't necessarily need to put your address unless you want to apply for like jobs in that area. It will help more if it says only hiring from, I live in Atlanta, the Atlanta metro area, and you put an Atlanta address because a lot of times they won't necessarily look at you. If it's a remote job, then it could be different. But just think about that these days with the plethora of remote jobs or some companies being like has to be in this area. Um, the other thing is for your email, make it be your name or something related to your name or not some weird, Tracy rocks at Gmail. Like, don't do that. Make it professional. I've gotten some very odd email addresses over my career of people sending resumes. Make it professional. And also, if you're of a certain age like I am, um, if you have an AOL or Yahoo or a Hotmail, it makes you feel old. I hate to say it, but it just is. Maybe think about getting a Gmail. Okay. And I mention it because I've had people say it to me. So just think about that. So the summary statement we'll go over next. Keywords, very important to modern marketing. Your work history and professional experience, that's the core of it. Education, and then relevant training, software, tools, certifications. You all have lots and lots and lots of training. And I'm not saying to discount that, but let's find the pieces that are most relevant to the jobs for which you're applying that you can take from your military experience. Did that just go off? There we go. Okay. So the first thing's the summary statement. And this is that top little paragraph on your resume. And it provides an opportunity to showcase your skills and your persona at a high level. And it highlights the areas that are most important to you, to who you are and the value you can add within the context of the roles that you want to secure. So, do you want to be known as great communicator and you're applying for PR and sales roles? Do you want to be known as technically astute? Do you want to be known as operationally efficient? So those kind of big level persona things that go up there. I use like a little short heading to encapsulate how you want to be known. Mine says like global brand leader at the top. So it's super clear who I am. And one of the things that you should do is don't try and write it first, write it last. Because once you get through the rest of the things on your resume, it's going to be a lot easier to write. And so that's like a tip. Everyone thinks they struggle to get the top done. Don't do it first. Do it at the very end of your resume, and you'll find that it's much easier to get through. The other thing about the summary statement, somebody gave me a tip on this once, and I thought it was really interesting, is that if you took a piece of paper and you folded it and you just saw the summary statement without the rest of it, how much would the reader know about you and what's important to you? And so think about that from the things that you're going to put in your summary statement. Okay. The next piece is the keywords, and this is essential in today's modern resume. I used to not like them because I felt like it was just people like, I'm good at this and good at this, and I can do this and all these things. But unfortunately, that we all know that's how you're screened online. That's how, if you're applying for a job online, that the algorithm is going to make sure that you have certain keywords that the employer has called out as necessary for a role. And so when you're looking at jobs, ensure the words in the jobs to which you're applying are in your resume or the skills are in your resume. I'm not saying add things that you don't know how to do. Don't make things up. But if somebody needs to know that you know a certain programming language or you have certain certifications or you have a CPA, like make sure that stuff is in the resume or you have done certain kinds of had certain kinds of experience in your roles. Like use the language. If you call it something a little different than they call it what they call it, because that's going to help you get through the machines. So. Okay, the core of the resume is the work experience. And this is where you tell your story and demonstrate your value. And I want you to think of it simply, and people muddle it because a lot of people will be like, I did this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And you get a list of bullets and it's like 12 things and it's just stuff. And it doesn't tell your story. It doesn't do you justice. So I want you to think of it as this: your skills versus accomplishments. Your skills are what you do, and your accomplishments are what you did. Simple as that. So your skills are intrinsic to your role and level of experience. Anyone with a similar role will have those skills functionally, not necessarily dependent on industry, but I'm a marketing person and I worked in media and entertainment. And I worked for Cartoon Network for a long time. The person who had my job at Disney Channel had very similar skills for the role. Okay? So it provides those skills provide a baseline to evaluate your viability as a candidate. And having those words in of what those skills are and make sure you outline what those skills are to a potential employer or someone you're networking with is really, really important to show you have the skills. So baseline viability. The accomplishments piece are what you specifically accomplished in a role that's distinctive in driving the business. What did you do? Now, any job, especially military roles, it's not always a you, it's a we, right? There's no part of business these days that's a you. Everything's a team, everything is matrixed. What I would challenge you to do is find the things where you played a more prominent role on the team. You took a big piece of the assignment. You led the team. Because I want you to talk about you. There's like two times you get to brag on yourself: when you're interviewing for a job, when you're doing your performance evaluation. It's all about you. And so they're hiring you, they're not hiring your team or the we. And so when I ask people, what did you do around X, if they have on their resume, and if they say to me, well, we did A, B, and C, I go, I don't want to know what we did. I want to know what you did. And if you can't tell me I played a big role in this initiative or this project or this whatever it might be, don't put it on your resume. Find something else. Find the things where you tangibly played a big role in the value and the output. And so always use those action words to specify what you did, managed, delivered, outlined, developed, led, ideated, strategized, whatever it is, action words. And then outline the results and quantify if possible. Resulting in, which led to. Those things are really, really important because, again, everyone who's applying for those roles has a baseline of skills, similar skills, 60 to 80% of the same skills. The outputs and the accomplishments are really, really important. And that's when you tell your story when you get into an interview, whether it's an informational interview or an actual interview. And that's where you really define who you are, and it's your time to shine. So then how do we do that? And so this is really important. And there's lots of ways to do it, but to me, separating out the skills and the accomplishments are really important so you don't muddle them. If you want to demonstrate that you have baseline viability for a certain role, put the skills in a short paragraph first and prioritize them. And they should be maybe 4 or 5 things at the most. I'm responsible for this, managed this, oversaw this, developed this. And then if you manage people and money, led a team of 50 and managed a budget of $500,000. That's your baseline viability. And put that in a short paragraph. The big things first, match it up to the job that you're looking for or the kind of roles you're looking for. And put that in a paragraph. And then bullet your accomplishments underneath so they stand out as distinct accomplishments that are a result of the things you know how to do, the skills that you have. And level of importance or relevance to desired roles, and end with the result, resulting in always the result, because people miss that. And I'll ask people in interviews, so what happened? Like, you did this giant initiative, so what happened? And being able, because that's the value piece, right? That's the value piece to an organization. Hey, we drove $1 million of new revenue because of this, or we launched a whole new piece of the business because of Y, right? That's what you want. And so think about that. Okay, so translating military to civilian, and I'd like to think from doing this for a long time, I've gotten pretty good at it. But I find military folks have resumes with lots of letters and acronyms that unfortunately the rest of the world doesn't understand. So it's your job to help the rest of the world understand the fantastic, unique value that you can add to an organization. It's just, but it's hard for folks unless you translate the military to civilian. So instead of thinking of the specific military related attributes to a role, go break it down into skills and responsibilities. So first of all, what's the objective of the role? Like, what are you tasked to do in something? Think about that, write it down. My responsibility is, but in plain language, and it'll help you think of the next piece is those functional attributes. I had to organize. I had to manage risk. I had to do logistics. I had to do budget management. I had to build an organizational structure, whatever it is. But break it down into those pieces. So start holistically at the objective and then break the functional attributes down into pieces. Always include the people or leadership related functions. Don't forget about those. I mean, a lot of you folks manage big amounts of people, more people than the average person in a corporation manages until you get pretty high up. So think about those things. Think about the complexity that you're managing. Next, really define the outcome as a result of your actions. It's the accomplishments piece, is just what we talked about. Break it down into the plain language of what that result is from the actions you took, and make it easy for the reader to understand. And it goes back to this functional attributes piece. Like, think of the things that those jobs require. And if you're having trouble with it, what I would tell you, throw it into your favorite AI program and say, what are the key skills of being a military supply chain officer? And that will help you. You might as well use the tools if you can. And so I put an example here. I had someone I worked with years ago, and he ran security details for generals in Afghanistan, and he was having a really hard time putting together his resume, and I really had to pull it out of him. And it was amazing how much stuff he was doing that he didn't even realize um, that he was. Like he knew it, but he wasn't articulating it, and he wasn't telling his story and showing that value. And so when you describe the skill piece, responsible for security for visiting military officials at X location over 18 months, okay? And you can add to that a little bit. But think of how many skills, transferable skills to many jobs are part of that. Logistics, planning, security, risk, materials management, budget management, people management. Those are, and then kind of those softer skills. You need really high attention to detail. You need a really good way of managing people. You are functioning in high stress situations. Put all that in. Those are transferable skills. All those skills work for many jobs. And then always put the result. And the result was 0 security incidents over 20 visits of high-ranking military officials to X base in Afghanistan. That's what we did. And if you had seen his resume before we talked about it, he had like 4 words on it, and he was not telling his story, and he wasn't communicating his value. And sometimes it's hard because it's always about a we, but there were certain things that he did to make sure those leaders were secure, that things ran smoothly, and we highlighted the role that he played in the job that he had when he was overseas. Okay, so things to keep in mind. You do not need to list jobs going back to when you were 22. Okay, unless you are only 30, so you might be young. But you don't have to go back more than 15 or 20 years unless they have some kind of critical value in your job search. The second thing is the more recent the job is, the more information it should contain. So the job that you're in right now, or you just had, should have more information than the one before that, the one before that. Now, if you're in a new job and you've only been there maybe 2 years, it might be a little less than the next one that you were in for 10. But you got to really highlight your current experience because that experience is more relevant in many ways to the new job you're looking for because of the experience you've had before it, the level that you're looking for within an organization, the responsibilities you have as you've moved up. Another thing that I think really helps is provide a one-line statement for each company or division of a company as to what it does. Because its context is king. It provides context for even the most well-known organizations. And so I worked for Warner Brothers Consumer Products. It's a division of Warner Brothers Studios. But Warner Brothers Consumer Products does not make any consumer products. It's actually the licensing arm of Warner Brothers Studios. And so my resume says Warner Brothers Consumer Products, the licensing arm of Warner Brothers Studios. We license our intellectual property to other people. And so that way, if somebody, which is a machine or an HR person, is not familiar with what licensing is or what Warner Brothers Consumer Products is, they can see that we actually didn't make anything. We actually managed other people who made things. Make it easy for the reader to understand the value you can bring. The value piece is so important. You all have so much value to add to an organization, and it's so important to do that. Um, but but simplify it. Use those action words that we talked about, and look at the job description and tailor your resume to that job description. As I said in the bottom there, you have to make sure that it's 80/20. You don't have to change every single resume for every job, and you shouldn't be, because then you're all over the place and you're not focused. But there are certain things that you can tweak for different roles to add more value to a hiring manager or to someone you're networking with when you're giving your resume to them. So watch outs. Okay, typos could disqualify you right away, especially if you're sending a resume to someone. Have somebody else read your resume. Somebody who doesn't know you like as intimately of what you do. It really helps. Tenses. Okay, this is one of my biggest things. And people write resumes and they think there's like this resume speak of, they're doing a job right now and it's like manage budget for da da da. No, you are managing the budget, manages the budget, or you managed the budget in the past. So present tense for current job responsibilities and accomplishments, present tense. Past tense for past accomplishments in your current job, something you did last year, developed versus if you're working on it right now, developing. And then past for everything else. That weird resume speak that people think you're supposed to use, that's like this no tense resume writing. I think it just complicates the issue and it doesn't really explain, are you doing it now? Did you do it in the past? Like, just keep your tenses consistent. Acronyms. Oh my God, you all have so many acronyms. You have to explain it. People don't know what it is. And so write it out, explain it once if need be, and then abbreviate it. So I worked for the ABC division of XYZ, which is the da 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 da, and then parentheses, the abbreviate, and then you can abbreviate it from then on. So you don't have to write it out 50 times. But you have to put it in context. People don't know what it is. So try and avoid that at all costs. And if you don't have to write the abbreviation, just write out the words a little bit and let people know what it is. Don't crunch the lines together with small type. Spacing is important. If it gives you a headache to look at, the hiring manager might not read it either. Overly creative formats, I talked about that. Another thing is a sans serif font. If you don't know what that is, some fonts have like the little hooks on the letters at the end and they're a little more script-like. This font I have on here is a sans serif font. It doesn't have it. So if you look at something of like Times New Roman versus Arial is a lot easier to read because it doesn't have the little flourishes on it. They're just cleaner. They look better on a resume. One page if you're under 30, never more than two. All right. I've been working for 35 years. My resume is 2 pages. I'll show it to you in a minute. AI. Let's talk about AI for a second. Use AI. Help you write, help you tailor. Do your cover letters, assist with descriptions of your roles, assist with job applications. There's auto application software. Assist with understanding skills needed for certain jobs. This is a trick somebody told me. Use it. It's brilliant. I didn't invent it. If you're if you're trying to figure out what kind of roles you're interested in or want to look at different roles, and you're not sure, go into LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever it is, find 6 jobs, throw them into your favorite AI program and prompt for what are the key skills needed for this job. See what rises to the top. Operations, logistics, analytics, programming, art, da 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 da. It'll give you a good indication of why you're attracted to those roles, and then you can tailor your resume effectively. It's a great idea, but it'll help you focus. It'll help with that focus piece we talked about in the beginning. There's programs out there to help you do mock interviews. I always like to have a person help you, but do that. But my thing to you would be complementary versus supplementary. It's really easy to have AI write your resume. That's not who you are. That's not telling your story. And you're going to get AI speak versus being able to communicate your value. There's still some, have them help you. Like I said, if you're having trouble describing a role, throw it into AI and have them prompt for some keywords and put it in your resume. But make it feel like you, not like an AI program. And look, let me tell you, people can tell now. They can. And the more you work on the resume, When you get to the interviews, the more easily you'll be able to tell your story. 100%. This is my resume. I always keep one. What is wrong with this thing? Um, I've got a little color in this one, but you can see I've got my summary on the top. I've got my keywords. I've got my current job, and then I've got the companies I worked for. You can see a little summary paragraph. And then one thing you'll notice under these jobs, I only have 2 or 3 bullets under each.
Tracy, so sorry. I think your dialogue is over the, yep, there.
I don't know what's going on. Can you all see that? But I only have 2 or 3 bullets under each. You don't need 50. Pick the ones that are most relevant. And then look at your resume in totality and show the breadth of your skills because you all have broad skills. Last piece, your a bio and LinkedIn. So after finishing your resume, you want to transfer some of those key details to your LinkedIn profile, focusing on the information that best aligns with your career objectives and the story you want to tell. So I like to have my summary statement up there, and then each of the jobs have like 1 or 2 bullets under each, like 1 or 2 skills and maybe an accomplishment. You're not rewriting your resume on LinkedIn, but it's enough of a flavor that if somebody is looking for certain things, that they can find you. It's also great to have a bio on hand. Um, it just provides a snapshot of who you are in a professional setting. It lets runs, credibility or skill set. And just have a short and long version. It's just great to have if you ever need it for something. So that's just a thought on that there. So I think we're at 40. We have time for questions now. I'll stop sharing because obviously I'm not very good at that. So I don't know what is going on with my workspace. Sorry about that, everyone. Quite
All good,
embarrassing.
Tracy. No worries. So we do have a couple questions before I dive in that came through the chat. So one from Deidre Whitfield, is not having a LinkedIn account a negative impact?
Yes, you need a LinkedIn. You need to build a LinkedIn. The first thing I do whenever somebody, and I talk to a lot of people. I have students, I'm like you said, I'm very involved in SU. You absolutely have to have a LinkedIn account, preferably with a lovely picture of yourself.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it humanizes you, right? It's like, you're not a black box. This is you humanizes you. But this day and age, you absolutely need a LinkedIn, and the LinkedIn can help you build your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that, Tracy. So moving on to Becca Gorman. So she mentioned, from what I understand, they say a rule of thumb is going back 10 years for commercial industry unless you are executive level for many government contractor positions. You do have to go back for your entire career, especially in the cleared space. Could you please touch on this? Thank you.
So how far you should go back? It depends on this, like how many years of experience you should put on your resume. Is that the what we're trying to get at? Yes.
Yeah, I think it's like how you said, how far to go back.
So part of it is where you are in your career. Part of it is how old you are. Part of it is what you're looking to do. So I've been working for 35 years, okay? I um I have and I was at one company for 20. So I work for myself now. I've got that up there. I've got a couple roles in the 20 years that I did at one company. And then I have one company before that that helps me with my clients because it was consumer goods. So I kept that on there. But before that, it's all taken off. And so it's but if you're 50, what you did at 25 doesn't matter that much. It just doesn't. But like I said, if you worked in an industry with similar skills, and there's some things when I was 35, I kept a little bit of that in there because the industry and the brand name lends credibility to my business.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Petra Wilkes, I think you took care of that already. You took care of her
Okay.
question. And then Becca Gorman again. So she asks, how do you address a break in positions? For example, someone took time off, either 6 months or a year, or possibly even longer to have a family, or even like take care of a family, or maybe even a death in the family of that sort.
Yeah.
How do you sort of address that career gap?
Yeah, I think it depends how long it is. I mean, if it's 6 months or a year, that's pretty normal these days. If it's 5 years and you took time off to have kids and have a family, there's different ways you can write it. Some people just will say career break from 2000 to 2005, family related career break or things like that. You can find nice words around that. If you want, some people do like to put that they kept active with volunteering positions under that or things like that. That's a good idea too. I think people get it these days. It's not like everybody's working the same way. There's so much more flexibility. But if you want to address that, yeah, just put in like family related career break and people get it. Are some people going to react some people are like, that's great, that's normal. Other people are like, but I think it just depends on the person. And honestly, if somebody's mad that you took 5 years off to have some kids, do you really want to work for them anyway? Maybe not.
Right. Thank you, Tracy. So I think we just have a couple more here. The next one was, oh, from John Allen. So he says, I noticed you put your education at the very bottom of your resume. Is that sort of like the new trend, or like is that just another way of formatting it?
Unless you're right out of college, you put it at the top. If you're not right out of college, you put it at the bottom. Because your work experience is more important. Yeah,
Got it.
because I graduated college decades ago. Right. So yeah, at the bottom, unless you're a brand new grad.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. The next one, oh, John Allen again. Do you think it's necessary to have a skill set section on the resume?
Yes, unfortunately, yes, because that's how you're screened online. They're because you're looking for the keywords. Yeah,
Awesome.
I have that. And that's back to the, hey, throw those six jobs that are you're interested in into an AI program and prompt for the keywords and see what those are. And if you know how to do 8 of 10 of them, make sure those are on your resume because that will help you with the automated screening.
Yep. Like you said, just tailoring it as close as you can get it to the job
Yes.
in the description. Yep.
Yes.
So from Dale Hicks, one of my biggest challenges is my length of service. So I spent 32 years on active duty. I break down my work history by duty station assignment, but last few duty stations were all very similar jobs and similar sized organizations. It seems to be a lot of repetitive information to put on my resume. How should I approach this?
Yeah, so that's a great question. You bucket it. So bucket it. So instead of breaking down every single, station one, two, three, or however you do it, bucket it and make a bigger headline of um either the title or or the and you know whatever the title was, and then you can maybe list this station, this station, this station, and like the years, like all holistically, and then kind of break down the buckets of responsibilities under it. And so I'll I did this with because it gets repetitive if you feel like writing the same thing over and over and over again, right? So I did this with a colleague of mine who was a creative director at the same job at the same company for a really long time. And kept just getting promoted and the roles were similar. And so I said, just write that you're a creative director and then show the different types of creative that you know how to direct. And so it was static art, digital art, video, editing, writing, like put the buckets of the things of the skills and then put the accomplishments under that. And so just format it a little bit of a different way, so it doesn't feel so duplicative. And kind of bucket it by whatever that natural break is. If those last three were similar because you were in a similar um, rank, title, responsibility set, like kind of put them together a little bit and then kind of go down. But you could put, um, U.S. military active duty for the last 32 years, 1995 to present, and then kind of bucket it underneath that. Don't discount the length of service, but you don't have to show when you were a private in 1995 or whatever branch you were in. But you know
I,
what I got at.
this is Dale. Yeah, I get that. The problem I run into a lot of times is um, a lot of the applications are online and they have the resume writers that they require you to fill in, which is very chronological.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's hard to kind of like, instead of doing kind of like a chunking it out in skill areas on a chronological because they want to know where you were, where you did. If I put down U.S. military, from 2023 and starting in 1991, and then they want locations, and it's all the required fields that really muck it up so that it's hard to kind of like do what you're saying is kind of like put it in logical groupings of, hey, I've got this set of skills that I learned over the course of 10 years. I have these other set of skills that I learned over the course of, 15 years and whatnot. So it's very challenging to fit,
Yeah,
that, my diverse, I guess, background into a mold that is designed for that
corporations.
doesn't really just fit for me as
Yeah.
well. So
So you said you were the three last, what was your title role, the last three stations that
I,
were
wa-
similar?
I was a command master chief, senior
And what,
enlisted leader.
okay, English. What does that
Uh,
mean?
uh, Basically, I was the most senior enlisted person in the command. I worked with the command, in the senior in the leadership suite, managing the enlisted personnel.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And
So
you did that in three places over how many years?
the last 15 years of my career.
Okay, so Command Master Chief, last 15 years. That's what I would do. I would say 2010 to 2026.
Hmm.
And then I would put over various locations, including New York, Atlanta, Iraq, wherever you were, put it in there. And then I would put your skills, and then I would put your accomplishments. And so you just bucket that into whatever Command Master Chief looks like over 15 years.
Yeah, I guess the question I have with that is
Yeah.
on those ones that have the required fields, little red asterisks next to them, like state and city, right?
Yeah.
If I put the state and city of my last duty station, but it
Yeah, that's
covers
okay.
15 years, I mean, it's not going to be like I was stationed in DC, I was stationed in Hawaii, I was stationed in New Orleans, I was stationed in Rhode Island. So, you know,
Yeah. Put the most recent one and then
yeah,
in the text add that co add the context.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, put in the most recent one and then just be like, in the text, stationed in five locations over the term of 15 years as command master. And then you put the skills, manage the enlistment personnel, sound in the executive suite, and then here are your accomplishments. And pick and choose ones from the different stations you were at.
Awesome. Thank you both. We have a couple more questions here. I'll try to get through most of them, but one from Petra Wilkes. So she's saying, I have my resume before I became an entrepreneur. It's hard to know which is relevant for a resume. When I try to apply for speaking engagements, I don't know which to use or which one to use.
I both. It's, I mean, I've got my business on my corporate resume. So I think, I mean, and I'm big about trying to get some speaking engagements. I think it's both. I actually think the combination of the two is unique and makes you distinctive. Um, and so I wouldn't discount either. I would put them together because I think especially when people are looking for speakers, um, why not tell your story as a military veteran turned entrepreneur? I think that makes you unique.
Awesome, thank you. And I think one of the last questions, so Dale touches on this as well as Becca. So are there any good resources or examples or even templates that individuals can use to polish up like a cover letter, a resume, whether it's building it or just revamping it?
Yeah, there's a million. I mean, Google. I mean, I have that format I showed you. That's the format I've been using for about 25 years. It's more about the structure than the look. And so it's heading, summary, um, uh, skills, accomplishments, job company skills, accomplishments, and then the bottom, education and any kind of relevant certifications or things like that. Go online and find one. Like I said, be very, very wary of the overly creative ones. I just think they're hard to read because I'll get these and somebody will like write something down here and then they'll go across it and your eye doesn't know where to follow. Like, do I read? And I think then you miss things. Your eye doesn't know where to follow. And so making it a little more boring, I think is easier for the reader and it better communicates your story.
So, thank you, Tracy. So I think this is our last question from Sean Gallagher. So he asks, how do you address roles as a manager where you manage many different teams of people? How would I capture my value in that? I think that probably goes along with Dale's point as well.
Oh my God, immense value in that. So I think you have to make it easy for somebody to understand like what kinds of teams of people. So how many people in the context of that management. Um, like I said, in the military, you manage lots and lots of people, often more than the average corporate person. And so don't discount that, but set up the context of where those teams were and what role you had in managing those folks, and then what the results were. And it's not just about the functional piece, but it's about the people development piece too, which is really important. And so don't discount the fact that your leadership helped develop them too. I think that's really important.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Would it be okay if
Um,
I jumped in real quick?
oh, go right ahead.
Yeah, so this is Chris. I was the one that asked that question. And the reason for the question is it's been kind of challenging to write my resume over the last several months for positions like that. And I actually had an interview last week for a project management position. And the interview, it was okay. It didn't go that great. But one of the things they kind of stumped me on was, okay, we see your last two positions, you were kind of a senior manager. Um, and this is kind of a tactical nuts and bolts kind of project management job. Well, so what can you do, right? And we see that you managed people who did stuff, but what can you do? And it's kind of hard to quantify your, let's say, a program manager managing an IT department of five different departments that includes, enterprise help desk, network engineering, cyber network defense, and it just kind of the wheels fell off, and they looked. It sounded like I managed a bunch of people who did stuff, but I don't know how to do stuff. I'll
Well,
stop.
so here's the thing when it comes to that. I think there's two things there. One is either you were too senior for that role, which could have been if you've managed five separate teams of people at once in technical skills, and they really wanted someone who was more hands-on. So maybe that wasn't the right role for you. Or two is you have to communicate which pieces, it doesn't mean you don't know how to do it, but nobody who's a manager knows how to, like, I've managed teams of people and they had roles. I didn't know how to do their job. My job wasn't to do their job. My job was to help them do their job most effectively. And so, I mean, I've managed many people who I do not know how to do their job at all. Um, and so I think depending on the level of role you're applying for, they don't necessarily want you to do all the stuff if you've managed five teams of people. I'm just thinking it was not the right role for you. It sounds like it was too junior then to be a project manager where you were in the nuts and bolts compared to your experience of managing five teams of people simultaneously. Now, I could be wrong, but that's my gut. And then the other pieces are, well, yeah, I've managed all those people, but of course you know how to do some of it. It's not like you didn't know how to do any of it. And so you kind of go over, yeah, well, my background is really in out of these five areas, I'm very versed in A, B, and C. The other two I've learned as I've gone along and managed the team. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much just for the clarification. It was kind of a not a junior, but kind of a intermediate level analyst position like at Citigroup, where they deal with global banking, big heavyweight type issues, but they definitely wanted a tactical level kind of frontline guy. And
You're
my
too
resume
senior.
didn't convey that. And yeah, I was like, well, okay, I got 20 years of experience doing PM before, the end of my career, they put me in director positions, but at that point it was, it was a plane in flames going down.
No, I'm sure it wasn't flames. It was just they shouldn't have interviewed you. Like you were too senior for that role. That's what it sounds like to me. Look, I've been there. I've interviewed for roles or people have called me about jobs who are like, "Oh wait, you're way too senior for this." Because they think they want the specific experience that's on your resume from being a PM, but you've you've moved beyond that, right? You're past that. So so on to the next. Learn from the experience and on to the next.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for sharing all these valuable insights and your expertise, giving us that lens of how to, craft that effective resume and how to integrate that necessary language. So we really, really appreciate your time today. And to everyone, thank you all for joining us. We'll be sharing, some additional resources after the StetNet as well.